Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. It's first time for me doing an online talk. I wanted to start by saying thank you very much to David and Dan. It's fantastic that we're managing to do this conference this year, despite everything that's been going on. So thanks for everybody involved with organising it. I'm very pleased to be here today to do an overview of the archaeology that's been going on in Wiltshire and Swindon over the last year. Despite the virus and despite the lockdowns, there's been a lot of archaeological work done in Wiltshire, and it's great to be able to talk about it. The archaeology team, the county archaeology team, and our important volunteers have been carrying on doing the work throughout 2020, and in fact we've been exceptionally busy, and I think, you know, despite the virus and the lockdown, there's been almost as much field work going on in Wiltshire and Swindon as there normally is in previous years. Of course, the one thing that's been affected badly is our ability to deliver face-to-face outreach work, such as talks to groups of people, and our usual archaeological walks, and those are the things that have really suffered. However, I'm really pleased to say that one of the results of the lockdown situation is that lots of people have been out and about enjoying the countryside and visiting archaeological monuments. And I've witnessed that myself because during lockdown, I've been going almost every other day to this wonderful hill fort, which is near to where I live in North Wiltshire, Oldbury, Cheryl Hill. And I've got to know it really well. And it's been so lovely to see lots of other people enjoying it as well, as one of the few things, you know, you could do during the lockdown period. It's a fantastic site. It's one of the best of our 50 Iron Age hill forts here in Wiltshire, in my humble opinion. And it's a very enigmatic site, no modern excavation. And I think it's crying out for a research project, if anybody's interested. And I certainly am trying to bag it as a project I might do in my retirement, in, of course, many years to come. But I think it's a fantastic site, and I've had the opportunity to go there so many times over the last few months. So, as usual, I'm going to start my presentation with a brief overview, really, of archaeological work done in the county. And as you can see from this plan, there's been about 50 to 60 bits of field work carried on. I'm just talking about 2020, really, just these last 11 months. And all the purple dots represents fieldwork projects done, both research and development led across Swindon and Wiltshire. And thank you to Tom Sunley from our HER team, who's kindly put together my maps for me. So as you can see, there's been a concentration of fieldwork in and around Swindon, also in the north of the county around Chippenham, Carn, Melksham, and just going into North Trowbridge. A little bit of work going on in the gravel extraction quarries up in the north east of the county around Marston Maisie, down Ampney, so that work's been ongoing. And then as we come south, there's been a concentration of development-led fieldwork in the Amesbury area, a few bits of work in Salisbury, and then a little bit in south West Wiltshire. So you can see, as usual, the distribution of the work has been quite wide across the county. If we look at archaeological fieldwork that's purely research-led, again, there's been almost as much as usual. Normally we have 10 to 12 projects a year led by different universities, or the field group, of course, and other groups. And this year, really, we've had a good distribution of them. Some of them you'll hear about tonight and across this conference over successive evenings. But we've had everything from something going on in the churchyard at Brokenborough in the north of the county, Great Somerford, Marlborough College, ongoing work there, Folly Hill at Avebury, where Josh Pollard and his students have been working, Ogburn St George, Richard Osgood and colleagues have been working at Dunch Hill on Salisbury Plain as well. A little bit of work around the Durrington Walls Monument and Blickmead, and finally we had an excavation of a hoard site in Semley down in the southwest of the county. So a good range of research-led work as well. So turning to development-led fieldwork, you can see here an even distribution really, but with a focus on Swindon. Now, if you look at this map, you'll see that the black dots represent archaeological fieldwork done by commercial units in advance of planning permission. So that's what we call evaluation. So that's mainly geophysical survey and trial trenching, anything from one single trench to, I think our largest one this year was 120 trenches. So you'll see again concentration in and around Swindon, Chippenham, a couple around Amesbury, and then a few down around Salisbury. The red dots represent excavations. So usually when a developer has achieved planning permission and we have asked for an excavation to be carried out as a mitigation to the development. So usually machine stripping, full excavation, and that's mainly been concentrated around Swindon and Chippenham. So you'll see, quite a lot of work going on. I'm now going to talk to you about 6 of those sites. You'll be very pleased to hear that I'm not going to talk about all 60 because that would take forever, but I'm just going to focus on 6 of those sites, and I'll show you those sites here. These are the ones I'm going to talk about tonight. We're going to start at Wick Farm, near Wick Farm in Beanacre. And then I'm going to travel up to the north of the county, Great Somerford, Blunsdon, Stanton St Fitzwarren and Foxbridge in Swindon area. And then I'm going to come down back to Salisbury Plain and talk about some work that Wessex Archaeology have done at Avon Camp in Netheravon. And by the time I get there, you'll know I'm nearly finished, so you'll be able to relax then. So the themes of this evening, really, out of all the sites I'm going to talk about, are solar farms and the archaeology that we find as a result of solar farm investigations. Swindon's certainly a theme, or the Greater Swindon area, and pesky Romans, because tonight I'm largely going to be talking about Roman archaeology, and that seems to be the majority of what we're finding at the moment is Roman sites. So with that little introductory bit completed, I will carry on my canter through the 6 sites, and hopefully you'll have some questions for me at the end. So I'm going to start with the Roman roadside settlement at Beanacre, which some of you will remember that Wessex Archaeology did an excavation here back in 2014 when some works for Network Rail, a parallel easement next to the railway, was required, and Wessex Archaeology discovered a Roman roadside settlement, and this was published in this rather nice publication in 2015 by Wessex Archaeology. You'll remember that this is a roadside settlement, and you see the east-west Roman road. I'm just going to try and find my pointer, if you just bear with me a sec. Where is that pointer? I think it's that. Here we go, here's my pointer. So you'll see here the east-west Roman road coming across. And this is where they found the site that we've just been looking at, the roadside Roman archaeology here. And this is the A350 that goes through Laycock here, and this is the railway line. So a good deal, 3 months of excavation done by Wessex in 2014. Again, in relation to other Roman sites in the area, there's the Roman road going across here, got Felucio at Sandy Lane. There were, before we found this site, there were 5 Roman small towns that we knew of in Wiltshire, and we think that the conclusions of this work by Wessex was that this is probably a 6th one. So what did we know at the time that Wessex did their work? What did we know about this site? We knew it was a roadside settlement that we hadn't previously known about, equidistant between Bath, Aquasulis and Canetio. It was occupied throughout the Roman period, 1st to 4th century. We found roads, buildings, crop dryers, etc., human and animal burials. But one important point was that we found over 40 bread ovens. So it's very much a service town, servicing the traffic that went up and down that east-west Roman road. We thought at the time that that settlement was possibly 1 kilometre wide and 50 metres deep either side of the Roman road. And of course, one of the wonderful things that we found there was the pair of stone altars that you see on the front of that publication. So what I've got to say to you tonight is very much hot off the press, and it adds additional detail to what we know about this site. This is what we knew. This is a geophysics from the time at which Wessex Archaeology did their work in 2014. However, Cotswold Archaeology, following an extensive survey done ahead of a solar farm development, Cotswold Archaeology have been doing an evaluation. David Sabin and Kerry Donaldson have done an extensive survey that gives us a far greater level of detail about the extent of this site. This is what we knew from the Wessex excavations. You might recall Phil Andrews talking to you about this about 3 years ago. Lots of Roman walls, courtyards. That's one of the bread ovens, and lots of amazing finds, including that stone altar. So ahead of a solar farm development earlier this year, we've been looking at this area again. And this is an aerial photo that shows these areas of dark earth associated with the Roman town. So this is where the Wessex Archaeology work was in 2014, down here, parallel with the railway, here. But we've been looking at this area here in relation to the solar farm, but can you see the distribution of dark earth here? And it carries on, this is the line of the Roman road, and it carries on here and carries on here. So I want to show you the new geophysics because it's really exciting. This is the new geophysics. So this is what we knew before. And here on the eastern side is the extent, a further extent of the Roman town, as brought to light by Kerry and David in their geophysics. And again, here you can see we've now got the eastern extent of the Roman town. So this is really exciting. Cotswold Archaeology have been out there and they've done well over 100 trenches, just testing the geophysics to make sure there isn't more there than we thought, or vice versa. And this is the kind of thing that they were finding. Lots of dark earth, lots of features, and it proved that the geophysics was really reliable. And here, again, a whole series of walls and ditches appearing in the trenches. Sometimes the trenches are so dense, it's very difficult to know what to dig, but it has proved that that Roman archaeology is still there and it's very well preserved. And here you've got a picture on the left of a Roman drain, and on the right, this is the Roman road going across this field. This is the stony patch is what's left of the Roman road. It's probably a much later patching up of it, but nevertheless, the Roman road is there. So this has been an incredibly exciting piece of work, all done during lockdown, and it really extends our knowledge of the Roman town. We don't quite know it all because it hasn't all been geophysics, and I suspect there are another couple of fields that we need to do, but the solar farm has given us an opportunity, and the application is still to be determined, but we've found a whole heap of archaeology. There's a couple of other sites that have also been found as part of the same project, a couple of other late Iron Age and early Roman farmsteads within about 700 metres of the Roman town. And this is one image of one of the clusters of enclosures, and you can see in purple the roundhouses here. And this is another cluster of settlement evidence, also about 700 metres north of the Roman town. So as you can see, our knowledge of this landscape has really been brought to life particularly by the geophysics, confirmed by the trial trenching. So dashing up north to the north east side of the county to Blunsdon, you can see Swindon down here in the south, up the 419, village of Blunsdon. This area has been subject to a lot of archaeological evaluation in the last few years. this particular site has been quite a surprise. It's about 700 metres west of the Roman road at Ermine Street, so we suspected there might be some Roman archaeology here. Both phase 1 and phase 2 of the site has been subject to evaluation. Actually, phase 2, there really wasn't anything there of interest that's been evaluated, but phase 1, the geophysics didn't look particularly promising. And this is again work by Kerry and David, the geophysics work, and the evaluation has been done by Cotswold Archaeology and the excavation as well. So initially the geophysics didn't look that promising, and a lot of the things that came up in the geophysics actually turned out to be geological. But right in the centre of the site, the archaeological trenching has picked up something really good, which is a group of Roman cremations. And initially in the trenching, they found 18 of them. And we then realised that we would have to stop at that point because actually it needed an area excavation. So Cotswold Archaeology came back, I think it was in March this year, and carried out the excavation. You can see here the blue square with the cremations in. So they found initially 18, and during the strip of this area, we found about 30 altogether. And you can see here, again, the blue box denotes the excavation area. This I'll come back to in a minute, but you can see the purple blobs are where the cremated remains of dead Romans basically have been found. It seems to be unenclosed, although the area has been very badly eroded by ploughing. So actually there may have been more of them, and there may have been an enclosed enclosure around them originally. We just can't find that anymore. So we found mainly cremations, some with cremation urns like this one, and we think that they're early. Another urn here, and then one very peculiar, very tightly crouched burial, inhumation, which seems to, it probably is earlier, but we're not sure, and we won't be sure until the programme of post-excavation work and dating, C14 dating, has been finished. But again, a really surprising site because we don't know of any Roman settlement in the area. So the Roman road is about 700 metres away, but I suspect that any settlement associated with this cemetery is probably under the 1980s houses, and it's too late to find it. One little surprise actually at the end of the excavation was the finding of a depression filled with soil and some Saxon pottery. And when it was fully excavated by Cotswold, we realised that it had these two post holes, one either side of this hollow, and together with the Saxon pottery makes us wonder whether this is a Saxon sunken featured building. So staying in North Wiltshire, I'm going to go to Great Somerford, and this is one of the research-led excavations that I'm going to talk about today. Those of you that know Great Somerford know it's a village just south of the river Avon, and you've got a scheduled monument, a mound, a Motte and Bailey Castle next to the church, early medieval church, and the field I'm concerned with is this one here. Of course, the church with the late 12th century with the 16th century, late 16th century timbered building next to it, and this is the mound that we think was a Motte and Bailey Castle. So, you know, Great Somerford is known as having a Saxon origin. So in this field, a local farmer was doing some digging to improve the drainage of this field, and he came across some walls, and a local resident, Hector Cole, who is very interested in archaeology and has done previous excavations, went and started recording what was being dug up and continued to dig all the way through the lockdown period. And he found a building, which is really intriguing. So he started to come across these walls, a two-celled building made of limestone walls with flagstone floors. And this is it from the air, and thanks to Mike McQueen for taking this lovely drone photo. This is the building towards the end of the excavation. As you can see, quite a simple, very small two-celled building. But from this building came an awful lot of finds, which we think date this building to between the 12th and 14th century. And this is Mike's geophysics. Mike McQueen surveyed the field, and as you can see, quite a few things in there. Unfortunately, the area around the building didn't give particularly good readings because of the disturbance, but there were quite a few things in there. And Mike has depicted here interpreted an enclosure on the left with an inner enclosure and some other features as well. And when he overlaid those on LiDAR, it gives us a slightly more complex picture. This field has definitely got Saxon earthworks in it, but there's been a lot of quarrying and later activity. But clearly a very interesting field at the heart of the historic centre of the village. And what Hector Cole has excavated has really helped to fill in that picture. Lots of pottery, prolific pottery and animal bone, which begs the question, you know, what was this building used for? Was it domestic? Was it some kind of agricultural building, or was it both? Lots of things found, lots of animal bone, lots of pottery. So Hector has written an initial report, and he's going to be working with Bob Clark to try and look at specialists to give us a view on what was found here, and Bob will be putting together a publication report on this. Staying with the Swindon area, going back up to the Swindon area now, we're going to visit the Roman town of Wanborough, because over the years there's been a lot of work done around this area because of proposed housing developments. You'll recall, some of you will know the Roman town of Wanborough. Some of it is a scheduled monument. The yellow layer here is scheduled. We know this from various excavations that have gone on, mainly by John Wiltshire in the 10 years programme of excavation from 1966. And the site we're going to look at is here, in this triangular area here between the two Roman roads. We first knew about this site from John Aubrey. Actually, John Aubrey originally recorded it, but since that, there's been a lot of work done by Colt Hoare, initially in the 1800s, and then by, as I said, by John Wiltshire. And also Bryn Walters and Bernie Phillips have done quite a lot of work on our understanding of the Roman town, recording the Mancio building, which is north of Ermine Street here, lots of burials, public buildings, bathhouses, etc. So in recent years, there's been lots of geophysics, mainly being done by archaeological surveys by David Sabin and Kerry Donaldson. And they've been working south of the scheduled monument, which is this triangular area here. And they have discovered all of these enclosures alongside the Roman road. This is Ermine Street, Roman road here. And we've discovered that the Roman archaeology, the Roman building plots extend far southeast than originally thought when the site was first scheduled. And this is the interpretation. As you can see, a lot more archaeology here. This is probably the industrial heartland of the Roman town. And this area is now all potentially going to be built on, but we are protecting the Roman archaeology with a good buffer. So I'm going to talk about these trenches that have recently been done up here. They've been done in advance of housing development by Oxford Archaeology earlier this year. This area here is part of the scheduled monument, and it's a rather unpromising area of land that's had a farm on it. So we actually thought that there wasn't much archaeology preserved there, but little did we know, because right up against the A419, we found half a dozen burials like this, some fairly well preserved. We also found the remnants of the edge of the Roman road. This is probably the roadside ditch of the Roman road. Lots and lots of ditches were found in the evaluation trenches. And walls started to emerge in the middle of the site, resulting in the finding of the corner of two Roman buildings. So this little bit of work here by Oxford Archaeology earlier this year is incredibly exciting because, I say, this was a part of the Roman settlement that we thought was largely unpromising, and nobody had ever looked here before. And it just shows us that we've got very well preserved Roman remains in this bit, and this will be preserved from any development work. So staying up nearby in the north of the county, I wanted to talk about another solar farm at Stanton Fitzwarren. A large area has been subject to geophysical survey and trial trenching ahead of a development proposal for solar farm. We know that there's Roman interest in the area because of this Roman villa at Stanton Park that was excavated in the late 60s, very rich Roman villa. So we suspected there would be other Roman in the area, and we weren't wrong about that. Again, geophysical survey by Kerry and David, and evaluation by Cotswold Archaeology. You see in the middle here all these enclosures, and this is quite an extensive Roman farmstead that's been found in the geophysics and then confirmed in the trial trenching, with two other areas of enclosures here to the southeast and another one to the northwest. And this is just a close-up of where we were putting the trenches, because we wanted to really try and elucidate what was here and its state of preservation. And here you go, you can see the dark marks in the trenches is where the Cotswold Archaeology found archaeological remains, and it proved that the geophysics was very reliable. And here is the enclosure to the southeast, again a series of straight enclosures, probably with roundhouses in it, a tiny little farmstead. Same to the north, another series of enclosures. Not a lot of pottery from these trenches, but the pottery that we did get proved to be late Iron Age and Roman. So, you know, an extensive settlement farmstead with two satellite settlements either side of it. And you can see here the kind of conditions the work was done in. It's very wet there, but lots and lots of ditches, like these ones in the section and illustrated here. So this solar farm development, what we've managed to do here is to preserve in situ some of the settlement evidence, but the main Roman farmstead in the middle of the site is going to be subject to full excavation over the next few months. So that will be a really interesting excavation to watch. So it just shows you that solar farms really are very beneficial in helping us find sites that we wouldn't have known about otherwise, because none of this came up in aerial photos. So on to my final site. I'm going all the way down to Netheravon on Salisbury Plain, to another piece of work done earlier this year by Wessex Archaeology. You can see just to the east of the 345, just south of Netheravon, a former military camp that's still owned by the MOD at Avon Camp. There was a potential development going to go in here, and we had geophysical survey done. You can see the location of this site. It's on a plateau with commanding views, and often with military camps, the same reason that the military wanted camps in these kind of positions today is the same reasons why, you know, our ancestors in Iron Age and Roman times wanted to settle there as well. Very well drained and commanding views. So we had geophysical survey done by Wessex Archaeology. Didn't seem all that promising, except a coaxial field system in here. A little bit of interest in the southwest of the site with a series of pits and some enclosures, but actually we didn't get to evaluate those in the end because they were outside of the development footprint, these ones here, so we haven't looked at those. However, when Wessex went to do the trenching, we found some very exciting archaeology in the two main areas of interest. Up here in the north of the site, we had two large prehistoric features, again funerary, and some later funerary archaeology down here. Looking at the ones in the north, two large pits with late Neolithic and early Bronze Age cremations and pottery. And this is what one of them looks like when it was excavated. Again, because it's evaluation, we only put small slots through these. We didn't excavate all of them, because obviously if the development was to go ahead, there'd be further work. And here you can see two barrow features or ring ditches here, one here and one here, with these grave-like features, of which there were about 18, I think. And here you can see one of the ditches with the central pit. Now, again, we didn't excavate all of these because it was only evaluation, but the burials look like they are Saxon, and possibly might be one of those sites where the Saxons were reusing an earlier Bronze Age barrow. So again, another very exciting piece of work on Salisbury Plain that just shows you that the plain is full of archaeological potential. This development at the moment isn't going ahead, so we won't get an immediate chance to have a further look here. And this is some of the work going on by Wessex excavating a grave, and some more grave archaeology here. That brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you for listening. And again, I just wanted to have a shout out to all of the wonderful archaeologists who have worked in Wiltshire, particularly the commercial archaeologists who've worked all the way through this year, through lockdown, and they've adapted to all the changed conditions and continued working hard for Wiltshire's archaeology. So thank you to you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Melanie, before we take some questions, could I just ask you to turn on your video, if that's all right, so people can see that you are actually here.
Yeah, I'll just
not a robot. Thank you. What's coming on? And then we're going to pass.
You need to enable me to do it. It's not enabled.
Oh, right, that might be David to do that, please. David, if you're there.
Should be.
It says the host has stopped me from putting on my video.
Oh, David.
No, I haven't.
But I am here, folks. I am here.
Fair enough.
I'm not
I might try that one next time then, David. I'm going to pass you over, David, to work out if there are any questions. If you'd like to take that, I'll stop me.
None been typed in at the moment. Oh, yes, we have one from Jonathan Brooks. In how many of 30 or so developer-funded investigations you've shown us tonight have been subject to a metal detecting survey, other than the National Grid North Wessex Downs?
All of them.
That's a very simple question.
Yeah, all of them.
Would you like to? Probably interesting to know how that's done. Is that done by the contracting unit?
It depends on what the arrangements are. A lot of the time, it is done by the contracting units. Some of the units use trusted metal detectorists that come in and do it for them. But it depends on the unit.
Any other questions on the chat? Sorry, on the Q&A. Andy Payne has just asked, was there any indication of the cremations at the Broad Blunden site in the MAG data?
No, I don't think there was. It was quite a surprise, really, because what we found on the MAG data was quite a lot of features that turned out to be geological. And there's some quarrying that had been picked up, but no indication at all. The site is so badly eroded by ploughing that I think it probably was originally enclosed because it's a kind of a nice little higher area in the centre of the field. But I think it's so eroded that we're really only getting the deep features left.
And Andy says that's not so unexpected, really.
That's right.
And then Richard Ward has just said, what's planned for next year? Were you able to do everything planned for this year?
In the county generally, or just that site?
I just see if I can enable, no, I can't enable him to speak. If you'd like to put your hand up, Richard, then I can allow you to ask a I should be able to ask you to talk. Oh, sorry, he's just typed. Let me just scroll down. In the county.
Well, to a large extent, it depends on what developments come forward. Some of the sites that were evaluated, if they get planning permission, they will go to full excavation. So, for example, if the solar farm at Beanacre gets permission, there'll be some work going ahead there, some further work. Certainly that solar farm at Stanton Fitzwarren, I think it has got planning permission now. So again, there will be a big excavation in the middle of that site, that main Roman farmstead, that will be excavated.
Okay, and Stephen Cogwell said, is the Netheravon Avon Camp West assessment report already available? Is it published?
Yes, it is.
Can you suggest where he can find it?
It's not published. It's what we call a grey literature report done by Wessex Archaeology. It's available online through the HER and probably through Wessex Archaeology's website. There may well be an article coming at some point from that work, but nothing's been written at the moment.
And Claire Crilly has asked, will the government's planning white paper proposal affect the number of excavations that will happen in the future? I
jolly well hope not. I hope that the proposals will be modified so that archaeological work can still get done up front prior to developers getting permission, and that we're still allowed to put on planning conditions to allow for excavation. I suspect that the white paper was a bit scary, but I suspect it will be modified